We should be live. We're live. technical issues out of the way. Thank you very much. Let us jump over and get started. Hi everyone. Thanks for joining and bearing with us. I'm Aaron Shibbons. This is.
I'm Chrissy.
And we are in Chamonix at the Norda house, coming to you live, UTMB week. Look at the views, amazing. So the order of things today is we're gonna have a bit of a chat about UTMB and all the stuff that's going on this week. Jump in the chat, let us know what you think, any questions as well. And then we're going to bring the Norda athletes through and just have a chat with them. They're all racing CCC or UTMB this week, so that's going to be fun, right?
Yeah, it's going to be a good time.
So, let us know in the chat. We are monitoring that. Yeah. Hi, guys. Kelp and Holden also. Love to you. Let's kick things off with a bit of a chat about the vibes. The vibes in town right now. Guys, also, just let us know what the audio is like in the chat. That would be appreciated. The first thing I would kind of say is, UTMB's got super busy, right? It used to be PTL started on Monday, and that was just so that they could finish when UTMB finishers were coming through Saturday, Sunday. But now it feels like it's week long. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we've got ETC, MCC, why is it YCC, the kids race?
Yeah, there's multiple YCCs.
So it's getting super busy, right?
Yeah. It's a full mountain trail festival, just event after event, and it kind of has gotten to the point where it's hard to keep track, and especially because, for example, they changed the day of TDS this year, so we all got completely thrown off, and so now it's there's a bunch of stuff happening on Monday, and then people for TDS are finishing on Tuesday, and then Wednesday is kind of this weird in between, but there's still so much happening. And it just every day there's a race. You're trying to keep track of who's finishing when and who's starting where.
Yeah, I kind of give up on that. You can't. There's too much to follow now, And then, so as most of the viewers know that follow the show, I was crewing TDS, and as you alluded to, I thought because historically TDS used to start on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
And now it starts on a Monday. Apparently it started on Monday for a little while. I didn't know. So I had sort of a very busy Sunday, Monday, getting through to crewing our guy, Ricky, who's got his feet up today, but he's joining the show tomorrow. And it's just busy from the start, right? It's even busy in the weeks leading up to UTMB.
Yeah. It used to be where it's even Monday and Tuesday was a bit quiet. People roll in, and now it's come the weekend before, everybody's here, and I'm kind of already starting to lose my bearings of what's happening even sooner.
Yeah. And the Expo, as of maybe 1-2 years ago, it's expanded to across the road, so it's double the size.
Yeah.
And what do you think of the Hoka? Can we even call that a pop-up?
It's a full build, and it's interesting because I watched them build it this year, and it's a 2-story wooden structure. They fully built out. I think they did a time lapse. I don't know if they published it, but I watched them build with this time lapse going, and they had, I don't know, probably 10 people in there just hammering stuff together. And I think it's something that they did last year, but I never kind of really paid too much attention to it. And then watching them build it this year, I was like, wow, they're really just creating new structures. It's like building an Olympics for trail running. They're kind of building a village that they're going to take down.
Yeah. It's a little bit do you ever see the motorhome sort of team setups that Formula One moved to each race, and they build these things out, and it rises up to 2 stories, it expands out to 3 houses wide.
Yeah, the footprint.
It's just crazy. But I'm yet to go, and I'm actually yet to set foot in the village. I haven't walked up that side of town yet. I'm saving that for tomorrow when I have a little bit more free time and maybe a few more runners or out of town
Yeah.
as well. And then one of the other things I've been thinking about is just like the other brands that have come into town, and we'll just pick one. So what about Satisfy? They are down towards Les Bossons. They've got an Airbnb. Their shop pop up. Can't remember the name that they're calling it. Is a garage, beautifully fitted out,
Yeah.
as you would expect, but they're not paying UTMB any money. They're just here for the UTMB rub.
Yeah.
What do you think about?
And it's a full retail store, and they've got Hydra Pack, Morton, and one other partner, I think.
Yeah, Lucky are there.
Yeah, and I think they've done some special like Lakey Satisfy maybe collection, and they've got the Hoka Satisfy collection shoes. So it's interesting. They've found a way to create their own pop-up village style storefront without paying to have a booth. I don't know how successful it's going. I personally am like, do I really want to go further away to go see one thing that I'm not going to go spend $300 US in, you know? So I understand the, like, everybody wants to have a presence. You know, we see it with Brooks putting banners on buses and parapet kites. You know, you see everybody doing it their own way. But it's interesting to completely disengage from the main UTMB village and kind of go full rogue. I understand why you might not want to pay, or why a smaller brand might not be able to pay to play. But I don't know if it gives me the draw.
It's just one of those things, isn't it? Like the Brooks wrap on the buses is a year-round thing on Chamonix. I think it's been going on for years, but this is the first time there's been a Brooks parapet in the sky.
Yeah.
They've literally copied the Hoka playbook.
Yeah.
From Ali Mack on that one.
Yeah, Brooks came to fly.
Yeah, so they did. And then one of the other things that I think has been kind of interesting is the arrival of hashtag No Spectators, the Speed Project, TSP Chamonix to Marseille. And for the viewers, that is an unsanctioned race. It originates from LA to Vegas. They did a Utah one to Vegas this year as well as a test run. This is kind of a test run as well. Just the relay only. I think it's 5 or 6 people. It's perfectly balanced gender-wise. But they started last week from the church, the special church, the FKT church in Chamonix, and ran in relays to Marseille on the roads, on motorway verges, in the middle of carriageways, all the places where you don't want to run in the Alps. So that kind of looked, it was totally new. What did you think? What have you heard about that?
It's kind of wild because I had no idea that it was happening, and I don't know if it was a published thing or if it was kept secret. And then I started seeing all these videos at the church, and I kind of had this weird feeling, because I think you hinted at this, like the church is a really special place, especially for those FKT moments, the Jack Kunzel, the Killian moments. And it's also, you know, obviously a sacred space. And so you see this like kind of ninja-fied middle of the night crowd with all this, you know, drones and phones and hype. And I don't know, as a town that has mixed feelings on UTMB taking over to begin with, I feel like that kind of pushes the wrong buttons, I would guess. And then, yeah, I mean, you make a good point that like the route itself is not, it's not an ideal from a safety perspective, and to throw a bunch of people that probably aren't from here into the, you know, roads through the mountains to Marseille and just be like, have at it, good luck, you know. I don't know. I'm not sold on this. I like the Speed Project for what it is, and I don't know about like this like concept of like you have to take every race and expand it to different cities and different, you know, events that are happening and capitalize on other people's events. Like, it's special as itself.
Yeah, it's the no spectators. This is unsanctioned, but it's heavily kind of marketed, if
Yeah.
you know what I mean. But it's like, it's
There's a
ninja
lot of
marketing, so
content.
it doesn't count. But did you see the videos of the church at 2 a.m.? I forget
Yeah.
what day it was. It must have been full 360, about 20 people deep with phones,
Yeah.
camera people, drone in the sky. And I it was a little bit weird.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a fan of the Speed Project, though. Don't really get the logic of the Chamonix to Marseille, and then everyone got the bus or the train back to Chamonix for the after party. Would not be better to start in Marseille, run to Chamonix, end at the start of UTMB week, kick your party off with all the
Yeah.
vibes,
Yeah.
and I guess the only problem there is maybe the vert that you got to run in your.
I mean, it sounds like it's pretty verty that way as well. Like, you're only really going down into Marseille. The rest of it's pretty up down. I don't think there's a way around that. Getting to Chamonix or getting out of Chamonix.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the stats on it. I'm too busy to dig into this stuff right now. It's UTMB week, and it's not a trail race. Like, if I ever do the Speed Project, I'm going solo. I'm doing a James Pool.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it. Do it like dirt bag and eating in 7-Elevens and getting that kind of experience with it.
Yeah.
Another thing I think worth touching on is kind of the big kind of thing that's happening in the Alps that's not part of UTMB that we're all watching, right? Killian's 4,000 meter peaks project. They're not at the Expo.
No, but they are here.
Big time.
Yeah.
they're everywhere.
Yeah.
So they're not at the Expo, and yesterday, I think it was, maybe it was the day before, getting a bit blurry with TDS in my head, but there's a flag popped up in the main street beside the icebreaker shop.
Yeah.
There's a little cafe up there, isn't there, up that alleyway?
Yeah.
So are they going to do a pop-up? Is Killian going to come off Mont-Blanc as his last 4,000 meter peak just to upstage the start of UTMB? I mean, it's kind of really great marketing, but also not kind of. This is Killian.
Yeah.
This is the purest trail runner in the world.
It definitely brings up the same conversation of, do you choose to participate in UTMB as a brand? How do you choose to participate? Because obviously Killian has a storied history here, and for them as a growing brand, that they need to be a part of this community, I think, to really push to the next level, in terms of marketing and audience. It's kind of wild because we were talking about how UTMB week feels very like Monday through Sunday now. And this Killian Alpine Connections project took it, I don't know if it was like Friday or Saturday, where I was really starting to watch all of this content. And it kind of felt like UTMB mountain content just because it's him. And you kind of started to feel like, oh, he's coming this direction. You could see his journey, being in Switzerland. You're like, he's getting closer. Like, what day is he doing Mont Blanc? Because it's coming. Like, there's no way it's not happening. And honestly, like, I'm kind of sucked into it right now. I feel like the hype and the intrigue around that pulls my interest in more than like, oh, what's going to happen in UTMB in 2 days. Because we know the players with UTMB, we know what's going to happen. We just have to watch it as it happens. But all of this intrigue is really, I think it's going to be successful. I don't know if they will do a pop-up. I've seen their team walking around. They did a film screening. They have some sort of other event today. And they're kind of seem to be maybe announcing day by day or maybe by email. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, well, I guess maybe they need to keep it a little bit under wraps if it's not official.
Yeah.
But yeah, Killian has been making his way closer, and we didn't. All of these peaks that he was hitting, there's very few of them that you can just know off the top of your head. Oh yeah, that one. It's just like up the Rhone Valley, over to the right. We
Yeah.
know where that is. But then when he started to get closer to the Chamonix Valley, and just 3 or 4 days ago, he did the Grand Compound Traverse,
Yeah.
which is just on the edge of the Aosta Valley. We were like, oh yeah, like he's getting close to the biggie.
Yeah.
It's starting to make sense, and that's just when the penny dropped for me. I wonder how UTMB and the Pilates feel about the normal guerrilla marketing.
I have a feeling that they're not too worried about it. I think it's different enough from what they're doing, and I think if anything, you could see it as like that is connecting an alpine experience to this mountain experience that they're creating. And I think they just want to share, these trails, and what better an advocate than Killian to bring more attention to Mont Blanc.
Yeah, if Killian's in town, everyone gets the rub from that. It's a good thing,
Yeah,
ultimately. So yeah, good point. So before this broadcast, we were over at the Norda pop-up, checking out the new 005 shoe, which has been unveiled yesterday and is out in spring of next year. So we saw that last year with a super shoe. Well, we're going to call this a super shoe.
Yes.
I'm not taking that as officially a super shoe, but it felt like a super shoe. There's
it's got all the components except for the carbon component of a super shoe. And I don't know if you can have an argument on whether carbon is required, but I think when you're talking about foam, materials, lightweight, cost, you're playing with a super shoe.
Yeah. And then I think for the purposes of the viewers, I read a good article, an interview with Nick, one of the co-owners, and it explained the number sequencing of the shoes. And I've seen some almost conspiracy theory speculation about where the number pattern's going, like really enjoyable, fun, interesting things. And a guy, Sean Howarth, he did like a cool diagram and predicted the next shoe's going to be an 8, and it was a bit of fun. But the 001 is the long distance shoe. 2 is for technical terrain.
Yep.
Both great shoes. The 3 is the approach shoe, like the slip on, as people might think of it. And then people are going, what about the 4? What is the 4? Why have you jumped straight to the 5, which is the race day shoe? But in this article, which is the first time I've heard it, the 4 is like a recovery shoe. I don't know if it's a slide or what it's going to be.
It sounded like it was a training version of the 5, and they just felt the pressure to get the super shoe out, but that they were going to have maybe a more normalized version of it as the 4.
You shouldn't use normal there.
So...
Yeah, but basically they thought it was more important to get the 5 out.
Yeah.
And they couldn't co-develop or simultaneously develop both. So
it sounded like they were close, but like they really needed to focus and like hit the market at the right point with the 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which it seems like they've done. So the 5's going to hit the market next year, and the 4 is going to come out at some point next year, or we're going to see it or hear about it.
Yeah, later next year is kind of what it seemed like.
So, I mean, we're just going to have like loads of hype building through to that, which is interesting. But a couple of things I think are worth noting, because we were chatting to Alessio in the pop-up, the Vibram guy, and like the squish of the shoe, it's got like a TP midsole, which is like the energy return thing, and but they've got this elite Vibram Mega Grip light base elite.
Yes.
So it's a mouthful, but there's less kind of little lugs and more specific lugs. So it's lighter. I forget the number, but it's significantly lighter just from the outsole rubber.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. We'll stick some links after the show in the description of some photographs that we took at the pop-up. But I'm kind of interested to just hear more about how the shoe's performing at these races this week. Jason Schlarb wore it yesterday, top 10 at TDS. Didn't take it off all day. I'm pretty sure by the look of his socks, he didn't change his socks all day. So it definitely looks like a comfortable shoe.
Yeah.
The upper looks like a big update over like the 001. It's almost like it looks like a fabric, but it just looks like it'd be very durable. And to be able to do that and have it in a super light shoe is kind of unique, because for weight we lose durability, and this is kind of like flipping it on its head.
Yeah, they kind of wove like a more durable material, and the benefit of having it kind of being this woven is, instead of it having the kind of enclosed breathability issues, you've now got drainage and breathability that you didn't have with the 001. And yeah, you've somehow made it lighter and more durable just because of the strength of the material and the Dyneema.
Yeah.
So
it'll be interesting.
Impressive.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to hear some athlete feedback on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's introduce our first Norda athlete at this point. So we're going to ask Kelsey Hogan to come over and join us, and Chrissy's going to join the hosting seats.
All right.
Great to see you. Welcome to Trail Talk. Do you want to start off and just give like the audience just a little snapshot on like where you're from and just the stuff that you're into apart from trail running?
For sure.
Yeah.
So I live on the east coast of Canada, in Atlantic Canada. Originally grew up in a small town on the west coast of the island of Newfoundland, where I was surrounded by ocean and mountains and just really got to fall in love with being outside. I live in New Brunswick now, also on the east coast, and just a short road trip away from the Norda headquarters in Montreal.
Okay.
And yeah, on Atlantic Canada, we're blessed with lots of technical, rooty, rocky, muddy trails. Not quite the mountains that we have here, but still a lot of beautiful, rugged wilderness. So I'm really enjoy spending lots of time outside and spend a lot of time out on the trails running and discovering, what sort of creatures and berries and things live out there. When I'm not doing that, I have a partner and a puppy, and we spend lots of time together exploring the local food scene. We like to cook. We've got a great community and home base there. Yeah.
And what type of puppy do you have, and how old is he or she?
Yeah, he's a 2.5-year-old golden doodle named Ralph, and he's actually in training to be a facility service dog. So one of the hats that I wear is that I have a master's in sports psych. And so in my future work with athletes and mental performance consulting, Ralph will actually come along to support some of that work. And you might see him at future aid stations or finish lines or arenas. So he's got a big role to play too.
I love that. And
Yeah,
a
that's-
golden doodle should be called Ralph. That's
Yeah,
a good
that's a great name.
He is a Ralph. He's he's goofy and
Totally
fluffy,
goober.
and he just loves people. He's bouncy and likes to play. He's not much of an endurance athlete. Like, he will sprint for about 800 meters and then flop in the grass. So he likes to have big naps when my partner Adam and I go out for big runs, and it works really beautifully.
Yeah, I have a couple of dogs, and one of them is like a sighthound, so like a greyhound, and she doesn't like hills. But you don't find these things out until you go for a run.
No, it's true.
So unfortunately, she doesn't get to run too much with me. But yeah, doggy people here. This is good. Yeah.
Awesome.
It's not your first time here in Chamonix, and I was looking back at your kind of race results, and you did the Grand Raid in 2022, and was that your first international race?
I'd raced a little bit in in the States before, but first one outside of North America. And
Yeah.
So
What
totally
would you go
different
for
style.
Diagonal de Fou? Like epic shit right there, hard.
Yeah. Well, I was very fortunate. They have a partnership, actually, the Grand Raid reunion with the Canadian race Quebec Mega Trail. And so that year I won the Quebec Mega Trail 100 miler, and they sent the male and female winners to Diagonal de Fou with some support for travel, accommodations, race entry. And on the back of that, I, had just run a really intense mountain 100 miler in Canada and got to take a couple of months to reset, prepare, and set my sights on going to Réunion. And it was stunning, just totally beautiful. I loved the atmosphere of the race, and I think just my first taste of the European racing scene here with, I think it's a really different culture. There's so many people who know about it, and there are fans of the sport here in a totally different way than I think we have back home. And yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah, and you were 10th female, I think. 37 hours, long day out.
Yeah, it was a hard day. It wasn't, I think I was really pleased that on a day that for me was a bit of a rougher time and, slower than I'd hoped going into it, it was still a really exciting result. But definitely it's a race I want to go back to. That one's captivated my heart in a totally different way. It's rugged and it's got like a little bit of everything. I just really remember too, everywhere on the course, there are people out, and every single person that you pass would say, bon courage or courage. So it was really the right atmosphere. And yeah, I think I can go back and beat 37 hours.
Yeah. It's got to be the biggest French race. I mean, after UTMB, like it has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's on this like little tiny island. You run the whole way across the island and just, up and down all the mountains. So it was cool to be able to get a taste of that. And there's I think growing up on an island on the east coast of Canada, I really like the coastal races too. So to be able to summit some of those mountains and be looking down at the ocean was just really energizing.
Yeah, and you seem to gravitate to the longer stuff. You're here for UTMB.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back on your race history, you also ran Tahoe 200.
Yeah.
2019.
Yeah.
I ran Bigfoot 200 that same year, and so that was kind of like in around the time the 200s, people were thinking, oh, this looks interesting, I'll give this a go. Why did you decide to give the 200 miler a go?
I think curiosity. Yeah, just like I think same reason I found my way to ultra running. Just the idea. I hadn't heard about ultras before I'd even run my first marathon, and I started to discover the idea of people pushing their limits. And I ran my first ultra as part of a 3-day stage race, and then I ran a 100-miler after that, and then I heard about a 200-miler, and I thought, well, that sounds terrifying and therefore exciting. I think when I do things that are a little bit scary and feel like they're at the edge of known, it just expands what else is possible in the world.
Yeah, it's one of those things that we're all kind of touching on with ultras, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's why we sort of keep pushing up the distance a little bit, but we're at that point where you can't really push. You nearly have to go for harder to make it longer rather than just go longer.
Yeah. I think there's different ways that you can explore that. Yeah, sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's faster, sometimes it's different terrain or different places. But I think every time you're trying something that is expanding that sense of possibility, it's really exciting for all of us. And I think that feeds out into our lives outside of ultra running too.
Yeah.
When you're choosing to run these really difficult things and kind of pushing beyond your perceived limits through distance or terrain or anything, you're getting a chance to play with some skills that you can, practice in a setting that is a little bit safe, where you have some support, you have a little bit of planning and prep and control. There's still a million things out of your control. But yeah, it's such a great learning ground for, I think, then taking those skills and applying it to the ultras that are existing in all the rest of our lives too.
Yeah, it's a good point. Last year you ran UTS 100K.
Yeah.
So Ultra Trail Snowdonia, new UTMB race a couple of years ago, I think. What made you travel to Wales? I remember seeing that at the time, going, "Oh yeah, what's this all about?"
I truthfully, I think my partner and I were both looking at places we were interested in traveling to, and he's caught the ultra bug and jumped on board with wanting to do these races too. And so when we were looking at places that both had exciting races and also maybe interesting areas we wanted to visit, we both had a bit of a connection to the UK. My family is from there, and some of his ancestors are from there as well. So we thought Wales looked interesting and exciting, and UTS, once we started to learn a bit more of about the race, looked like the right challenge. And it was quite a technical race, and differently technical than home. Lots of sort of scrambles and up and down the rocks, and really beautiful. And lots of sheep everywhere too, which made it really fun.
Yeah, that's our wild animals at home.
Yeah, yeah, all those wild sheep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You get livestock, you get a few ticks, you get some frogs. That's kind of about it. It's one of the luxuries of racing in the UK and Ireland and even Europe. Like, I used to live in America, and I found it like a mental thing. Like, oh, like there's bears there. And like,
the
there's
mountain
things,
lions,
you've got to learn this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And here, it's a bit like running an ultra, where there's like a safety factor.
Yeah.
There's a safety factor. Like, you can go fast packing in the UK, and all you have to think about is, have I got all my stuff, and what's the weather going to be like?
Yeah.
It's like a different.
Yeah, those wild sheep are just kind of part of the scenery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you know at the time of entering UTS that it's known as, for the distance, like some of the hardest races in the UK?
No, I think I've just sort of had a habit of falling into that with certain races. That, I find one that looks really exciting and then learn a bit about the history of it after I've decided to sign up. My first 100-miler was a winter race from basically the border of Manitoba up to Winnipeg in the middle of February Canadian winter, and totally freezing, totally not the 100-miler I would think of recommending as a first one, but I had a friend who asked me to do it, and I said, that sounds fun. So, when we were looking at UTS, I thought, that sounds fun. And then I learned, that's hard.
Yeah.
That was type 2 fun.
Yeah, all type 2.
Yeah.
So just steering through to UTMB. Now, last year in the build-up, you did UTS, you did what seems to be your favorite race, the Quebec Mega Trail. It's just a hunch. Yeah. And then on to UTMB, which you finished in 34:23. You're back this year. You ran Madeira Island Ultra Trail, classic UTMB prep race now that everyone thinks of.
Lots of good climbing.
Steep, beautiful course, island, 1952, and Quebec Mega Trail again, similar sort of time. What has changed coming into this year's UTMB?
Yeah, I think a lot of things. Honestly, I felt like last year I was dipping my toes into what it meant to be a professional athlete and to wear the hat of athlete. And this year, I really feel a sense of like confidence and belonging. I think just confidence that I'm doing what I love, and that is what makes you belong here. I think when you're doing what you love and you're putting it out there in the world, that really feels different to me. I also took a look sort of at holistically what other things in my life supported my running. I think, not too much in my training has changed. Lots of consistent running, lots of easy running, lots of adding hills. But I started working with a friend, Ray Zahab, who's been giving me some coaching, mentorship, and advice. I looked at, how does my nutrition and my health impact my running? I had really, really low iron at the end of last year and all the way through, and I am back up in the normal range this year, and that, took a lot of effort. I have a master's in sports psychology, and I started working with my thesis supervisor on just working through some of the pieces around the mental side of running. To talk through it with someone else makes a really big difference too. So I've added to my team, and I think I've added to like my support system, both in terms of people and also just the parts of my environment that support my running. So I'm coming, I think, at this race this year a lot more rested coming into it, a lot more calm and aligned, and just excited and ready to channel all that joy on the trails.
And what have you changed? I know you've got we were chatting a little bit about nutrition and stuff, and we were wondering some stuff that you may have changed in that spectrum.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I could hand it over to you.
Yeah,
on that.
I guess, you've did this race last year. You probably, I'm guessing, maybe learned some lessons.
Yes, so many lessons.
So what are you taking from the race in terms of nutrition?
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts pre-race for me. So like just that getting my blood tested and getting my iron levels up is a big piece, and that's that's pre-race, all of that. So thinking about the lead up to it, making sure I'm fueling consistently in my training and day to day. And then during the race, I definitely had some nutrition problems last year. I've had a few races where, the stomach hasn't quite settled or things haven't quite worked. So learning, I think, one, to problem solve that as I go. So I carry ginger. I have just plain water that I can drink to help settle my stomach if things start to go. And then having variety, but sort of keeping it simple. So I like to have a lot of maple syrup gels. I'm Canadian. It just goes down so
Stereotype.
smoothly. I also have Canadian honey, so just like real fuel if I can. And same with when I come into aid stations, having like fruit smoothies, having just like simple, easy to eat, tasty things. So I think more it's like not any one big thing, but it's more like the small bits of consistency along the way that have changed.
So do you feel like last year you weren't staying on top of your nutrition?
Yeah. I think once my stomach went, I sort of felt like I was having a harder time eating solids. And so I just I was drinking just a mix in my hydration. So having something else to balance that this year and having some options really helps.
Yeah.
And then staying on top of it early and just really working on taking it, even if I'm feeling a bit unsettled. If I get like a little sip of some maple syrup, it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you doing anything electrolyte wise?
Yeah. So I use NAC hydration mix, and that's in one of my bottles, and that helps with some of the electrolytes. I have the salty soup mix too, which has a little bit more sodium for if it's starting to get really hot.
Yeah.
And then my gels both have added sodium and electrolytes too.
You mentioned, so you're doing maple syrup. You mentioned having ginger. Is there anything nutrition wise that'll give you a mental pick me up?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think the one highlight of last year that and this has become sort of a recurring theme, is I learned that I really like cold things, and it is the biggest mental boost when it's hot or when I've just been drinking lukewarm stuff all day. And so last year I actually messaged my crew during the race on the descent to Triant and asked if they could find me ice cream. It was sort of like a Hail Mary. Like, I really didn't expect, one, that they would get the text, and two, in the tiny little town of Triant, that they would find any in the middle of the night. But they did, and I had 3 giant scoops of ice cream at that aid station. So this year they're already scheming, how do we keep things cold? How do we bring Kelsey cold things? And where's the ice cream?
Yeah. And it's hard to find ice on this course and in France in general.
Generally, it's tough. Yeah. Things are not icy cold all the time.
No.
But it is such a boost. I find, sort of mentally, but also, performance wise, it helps to have some cool stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else on nutrition? No? Like one thing I wanted to ask was touching on the cold thing, right?
Yeah.
We just heard, what was it, like 2 weeks ago, Tom Evans talking about bringing core temperature down is more important than like the
topical
like the ice bandanas and stuff like that. It's much more important to bring like
it's the gut temperature down so that your digestion can operate as normal versus
I'm not sure if that's one of those things that sounds logical, but actually a doctor would say that's rubbish. Because it sounds like that makes sense.
But that's what he was saying is getting your gut at a
Is it really about making your tummy cold?
I was just reading the chapter on heat and cooling in Endure by Alex Hutchinson. Fantastic book for any ultra runners who are interested in learning a bit more about the science behind all of that. And he touches on this. So I was actually sitting in the hot tub about to get in the sauna and opened to the chapter on heat and thought, okay, this is perfect. And he touches on it's both. It's like the cooling down your core temperature in your gut can make a difference. And there's actually more benefits. I think there's some studies on like the melting of things. So like crushed ice, slushies, that kind of thing, melting in your stomach makes more of a difference than just drinking cold things. And then there's the additional effect of your perceived temperature. So doing the like cooling, the ice bandanas, the like just feeling a little bit cold can impact even subconsciously, like how you're approaching a race and how your body is feeling in the heat. So whether or not it's lowering your core temperature, there's just that little bit of an effect from the perceived heat experience.
So you sort of need to straddle that line of brain freeze, like
Yeah.
just up to that line, but don't go over it.
Yes.
And so you validated Tom Evans' theory there as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we're okay. Cooling the tummy works.
It does. Theoretically. Yeah.
Yeah.
I found it works too. So there you go.
So we'd love to hear your thoughts on the 005 and
Yeah.
kind of the shoes in general. What's your kind of quiver going to be for UTMB?
Yeah, so I'm running in the new 5s for UTMB. I'll be starting in them. My plan is to run in them the whole way. I'll have a pair of 1s and an earlier version of the 5s that I can change into if it feels right or if it just feels like that might be a boost. But the new 5s just feel fast and light, and yeah, even just being told that I'll be fast and light in them makes a difference. So I'll be channeling that. I've had some good training runs in them on the mountains. I came out about a week and a half ago, and they felt just perfect on the trails here. And I've been racing in the earlier version of them sort of this whole season. I got one of the first prototype versions of the 5s the day that I arrived on Madeira.
Okay.
And with only maybe 5 kilometers of an easy training run, made the decision halfway through the race to put them on for the final half of Madeira, and I just felt like I was floating through that final half. It was the better half of the race for sure, and I've been racing in those ones kind of all summer, and I really like the responsiveness, the bounciness, how light they feel, but still enough cushion on that technical terrain that my feet don't get tired or bruised. They've got that lovely like Norda cushion.
Yeah. And how many kilometers, miles? We're talking to a Canadian here. We're kilometers, right?
Yeah,
we're metric. Good. I can speak that language. How much have you got in them?
Ooh, a good. I have it tracked somewhere, but I would say over 500 kilometers in them in the protos now, and I just got the new ones when I arrived here at UTMB, so they're a bit more fresh, and I've been wearing them as much as I can to just break them in and let them get to know the mountains here. But they're fewer kilometers, so fresh for the race. Get
them to that magic kind of 50k break-in point, and then just a dream from there on in if they're like the other shoes. Anything else you want to touch on in terms of your gear and stuff? Like, I assume you're using poles and things like that.
Yeah. And this year I'm just hoping, an hour before UTMB last year, my poles broke. And so I'm just hoping to arrive at the start feeling not as stressed as that. I have been using all of my gear since I got here, and everything's working and feeling as it should. So I do know that if I have any sort of mishaps, I have a fantastic support crew with me. I have 6 friends and family that are coming out to follow along with the race, and some of them were here last year, and they jumped into action, solved the poles. I had new ones within 10 minutes. And this year I know that they're there to help with any sort of problems like that along the way too.
There's always an emergency purchase in UTMB week. It always happens.
Yeah. And here, at least, I think more than anywhere else, I've realized we're in like the hub of gear. I was almost daring the airline to lose my luggage. You know what? I know I'm in a place where as long as I've got my favorite shoes and socks and, a couple of key things, then everything else is replaceable.
Yeah, everything else is here and too easy to get.
Yeah.
We were just chatting this morning about emergency UTMB purchases, and a couple of years ago they issued a cold weather warning on the day of UTMB, and every shop in town sold out of photochromatic sunglasses.
Oh no. Yeah. I heard there was a rush on sunscreen right now with the hot weather kit for CCC. And
everyone's running around looking for Sahara cap or
and many sunscreens to fit in their pack. Yeah.
So far we haven't heard anything about UTMB kit, but we can figure it out if we need to.
So let's wrap it up with one sort of final question. I'd love to know, like, what is a good 2024 UTMB look like for you?
Oh, yeah.
What do you want to come out the other end of it having learned or felt or whatever? Just what's your thoughts?
Yeah. You know, I spend a lot of time before any big race writing out goals and a whole series of like A, B, C, D, E, F goals for time, for performance, for outcome. And those I think are all very motivating and they help to push the race. And I think there's exciting things that can happen along the way for certain time goals or certain placing. But I think the most important thing for me is to feel like I'm running a race that I'm proud of. And that, you know, includes doing the things along the way that are part of the process. So feeling like I am fueling well and consistently out there. I'm thanking volunteers. I'm present in the moment, and I'm enjoying this thing that I get to do all day and night and some more time. Yeah. So being present with it, I think, is the most important thing, and the rest is all just bonus.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us, and
Thank you.
we wish you the best.
Thanks.
Hope you have a great race, and yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, looking forward to it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
That was fun.
Yeah.
And now we're going to be joined by Matt Sidel, your buddy.
Yeah.
You lead the charge in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I've started a trend of crewing Matt last year for CCC, crewed him for Canyons, crewed him again this year, and we get a good amount of time both on feet and on skis in throughout the year. So, yeah, welcome, Matt.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So tell us about your time here so far. What have you been getting into? How how have you wrapped up your training and going into tapering?
Yeah, so I've been here in Chamonix for a little over a week. I've been here since about early midweek last week. But kind of, I feel like anyone who's not here for at least a month out from UTMB, it's like you should be in taper mode and you should resist the urge. I think when we run around last week with Kim and Topher Gaylord, I think they phrased it the best way possible, which is kind of related to me last year. You show up the week of UTMB and you're just this kid in a candy store or a restaurant, just literally staring at like the greatest food you could imagine, and you just have to sit there and watch it for like 5 days and don't touch it, and then you get one day where you're just like shoving as much of it in as you can and eating it. So this year for me, coming out maybe a week and a half early has been a chance to dabble little appetizers and like feel full, but we're excited for the main course, which is coming up in a couple of days. So
yeah, we love Topher's been throwing that metaphor down left and right. I heard it again last night about like being in a 3-star Michelin restaurant and you just have to like pack it all in and then you're going to get sick off of it and try not to throw it back up. And it's really a great metaphor for especially, CCC and UTMB, because you are packing so much in and, such a kind of life in the day kind of feeling. So last year was your first time in Europe.
correct.
You got to see Chamonix, Italy. You got to do all these trails for the first time. You didn't have the little tasters beforehand. You kind of had to go into the race for the most part, seeing everything sight unknown. So how did you take that experience last year and then go into setting up this year?
Yeah, great question. Last year I kind of used it as a learning experience. I'd never been to Europe before for a race, never done a race with anywhere close to this level of vert. So it was really kind of trial by fire, and I really enjoyed that. It was fun. But this year, it's like, okay, I have expectations. I have goals in mind now. Thankfully, probably the biggest change this last year is I have the support of Norda, which has been a really big plus in my running career. The main things that I used from last year was, and I think the biggest thing, which is less to do with CCC, more with kind of running at this caliber of ultra running. This year I've had the fortune of doing Black Canyon 100K, Canyons 100K, and now CCC, which I would argue are probably the 3 most competitive 100Ks you can do in a year, which I enjoy. That's why I'm in the sport. I want the highest level of competition. But understanding that it's a race, and no matter what you go in with the expectation of, you have to be ready to race. And so I think even if you think you're not as fast as other people, preparing your body and far more importantly, preparing your mind for kind of the pace and the effort you're going to go off the front. More logistically for me, I think last year you really can't underestimate the vert of any of the races here. Like just per mile, per kilometer, you're just going up and you're going down, you're going up and you're going down. There's no flat. That doesn't mean you're not running, to be clear, but for me in training, that was like, I'm just going to find the tallest hills around me, or have the fortune of traveling on like a lot of weekends, getting out to more mountainous locations, and just get used to vert, normalize vert, just make it be an afterthought. So I've done at least 50%, if not more, vert per week than I ever have in my life to get ready for this. So I haven't underestimated it. I think a lot of people have touched on it, both here and everywhere. The nutrition is like definitely the thing people are pushing lately, and I think if you can get your stomach right, you can push yourself a lot more. So practicing nutrition a lot, and then just mentally, having seen the trails, having been here for a few weeks, just kind of being at peace with it, not like nervous, don't need to like study. I know some people like study the course, must only run on the course. I'm not that kind of runner. I like to enjoy the experience, and so dabble in it, but don't overdo it. Yeah, just be excited come race day.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, you have done a good amount of competitive racing this year. Each year you're kind of upping your game, you're improving your performances, but you're still learning a ton and how to execute in that race. And I think you're also kind of at the same time you're looking to come to CCC at the end of the year. Earlier in the year, you're looking at that golden ticket kind of style of racing. So how do you take those, very different fast running races, not necessarily translate that training, but how do you translate kind of the mental strategy of those races into something like this?
Yeah, great question. I think the first thing is it's a physical trait, but I think it is much more mental, is the understanding fitness is fitness. Like everything is building on itself. And so even if, I actually laugh, the race before Black Canyon even was CIM, which is a flat road marathon, which is completely different, but it's like fitness is fitness. The workouts, I think, and long runs kind of you fine tune for the race, but overall, like just building a base and staying healthy, just everything you do builds on itself. So I think understanding that I've, knocking on wood here, stayed pretty healthy lately and doing everything I can to keep that in the case, and then just kind of building each experience on itself. I think this year in particular, really trying to put myself forward and really elevate my own game. I think a big thing has been, racing the race. And for me, say like Black Canyon, it was like, execution wasn't perfect, but like not being afraid to be at the front of the pack. Like, yeah, if I feel I'm here, you kind of have to be in the mix. You can't, especially in a 100K distance, given nutrition and the amount of elite athletes, you can't really sit back and then expect everyone to come back. And I think maybe one of my personal, like, good friend, but also like a idol that not idol, but like someone I look up to in the sport is Rod Farber, and kind of him having this exact same mental strategy, and he's obviously skyrocketed this year, but he's like, yeah, you can't sit back, you can't be passive, you have to go for it. And that doesn't mean be stupid, but it means run within yourselves. I think Canyons was that next race, and obviously you had the chance of crewing me out there, and I didn't still have the perfect day, but much more so like running a smart race, being in it, and like understanding who up front is worth staying with, who isn't. And I think more often than not now you're seeing these races go out in big packs, and by no means feel the need to like be right in the front of that pack, but like understanding that if you're not in that front pack relatively early in the race, the odds of every single person coming back are pretty small, if I would argue none at this level. So not being afraid to be like up there in contact, but staying within yourself, being in control. And I think, yeah, trust your fitness, have confidence, don't be afraid.
Just thinking back to, you were on the show earlier in the year. Yes. After what I think was best called the Full Send Black Canyon 100K. I guess thinking about your Canyons 100K, it was a very different race strategy. So talk a little bit about what you learned from those two strategies and how that's going to help your CCC, given that this is your second go at CCC.
Yeah, in an ideal world, and obviously, I think the other part of racing a race is like you can't really predict what's going to happen. So being prepared for anything, but mentally for me, it's like maybe trying to thread the needle between those two strategies. I think Black Canyon, honestly, the race didn't go well. I'll say it wasn't a good race for me personally, but I had appreciated being in it early, like understanding what that felt like. And then Canyons, I also just, you got to read the course too. You got to understand, what your strengths are as an athlete and kind of try to push those. So for me, it was like, oh God, conservatively save my legs and then run the back half. And I executed that strategy fairly well. It's just pack ran away and there was no catching up. So it's like, okay, it was better. Like the place was higher. I felt more confident and felt like I executed better, but it was maybe too far of an overcorrection. So now it's like, how do we balance those? And I think for me, it's going out strong. And part of the thing I actually talked to a handful of people this week is understanding that, when I first started ultras, it was always the first half should feel easy. Like you should feel like you're not putting any effort. And I think not being afraid and having the confidence to be like, if it hurts a little, that's not wrong. Like you're racing, you're pushing yourself. You're also undergoing the race day stress, and stress comes in many different forms. So not being afraid if it hurts a little, like obviously you don't want it to feel like an all out effort from the beginning, but I think having that confidence to be like, okay, it's okay to push yourself a little to stay with the pack. Just know that you have something saved left over for the back half. And I think, especially with nutrition, if you can just keep eating, for me and for a lot of people, it's like if you can keep your stomach, you keep eating. If you can just run the second half, you can do really well. So I think putting myself in that position. So, go out strong. Like my goal is at the top of the first climb to be up there in that lead pack. I don't want to let them get away, but also understanding that you make your moves in the back half. Like don't push, don't throw any surges in, like 30 kilometers. Like that'd be a little silly, but
Yeah.
Sounds smart, right?
I mean, Matt is always very thoughtful, and it's just a matter of kind of a little bit of that trial and error and seeing what works. You talked about kind of in canyons knowing who to kind of hang on to and knowing who to let go. This is a really massive, like, as we say, the depth is deep on this field for CCC this year. So have you thought about for this race who you think is maybe racing similarly to you, or who you think is worth kind of keeping an eye on and not letting go, versus who is like, I can't race the way they race. I can't be worried about them.
Yeah, maybe to answer that question, and I would say my results haven't reflected this, but I think part of the like mental confidence aspect is feeling that I could keep up with anyone. So honestly, not being afraid of anyone. That being said, if someone that I'll be honest, say someone I don't know, I think I obviously know all the Americans and a lot of the other top players, but there's just I think by UTMB index, I fancy myself to be decent, but I'm like the 53rd ranked athlete in this field, which excites me. That's what I like. I like having a lot of people who are good. And so if I see some runner I've never heard of before, like running 5 minutes in front of everyone, like, okay, you can let them go. Like if they have, if they are the first person to ever break 9 at CCC, cool, let them have that day, because that's not me. But pretty much anyone that I know, it's like, don't be afraid to be with them. There are maybe certain people that I see as having very either similar race strategies to me or who run smart. The name I can just think of off the top of my head is Eric Lacuma. I know to be a very strong and like confident back half runner. But then you also have someone like, say, Rod, who, is usually that way, but has, the last few races kind of turned that extra dial. So I'd say just pack mentality. Like there's no one you can't be with. That being said, don't feel the need to be with them. I think especially at a race like this where, I would reasonably expect the podium to, on a good day, be pretty darn close to like 10:30, that you kind of have to be up there. And at a certain point, there's a finite amount of real estate. Just got to stay with people.
So we've obviously heard that the hot weather kit has been activated. What will you change in the strategy? We've got someone in the chat asking, like, would you consider even like dropping into a river? I mean, not like going off course to get into a river, but like getting yourself down into a stream. Like, what changes will you implement based on like the super hot conditions we're expecting?
And I guess also going off of that, we had a kind of a surprise hot year last year, and maybe most of the field didn't quite kind of prepare ahead of time knowing it was going to be hot. So how do you take the experience in the heat last year and the knowledge ahead of time and kind of funnel that into a strategy?
Yeah, and I think Chrissy will know a little bit about this. She's had the fortune of crewing me a handful of times, but honestly, the hot weather kit does not change anything about my strategy, because I naturally like to just stay cool during races. Like at Black Canyon this year, like the high temperature. Oh, I'm horrible with Celsius here, but it was like it never got above 60 degrees Fahrenheit, and I was still putting on ice. Like I was still cooling. So I always cool. Like it just I overheard you talking with Kelsey a lot about cooling, and I always try to do that. I also always prepare myself for heat, and it's maybe partially heat training, but partially I live at sea level, and I love being at sea level. I think part of the way that I supplement living at sea level and not being at altitude is doing a lot of heat training naturally. I love the sauna. I try to get in, if I have the time to, getting into the sauna 4 or 5 times a week, because it's just like both good for heat training and just, really soothing for the soul and body. So I feel like I've been preparing for heat, not necessarily thinking it'd be hot, but it's a big plus. And yeah, even last year it was pretty warm in the middle part of the race, and I specifically remember the climb out of Champélac up to Bovine. There are a bunch of streams you cross, so you don't have to go out of the way on the course. And I last year was like dipping my hat. I think we had an ice bandana, but there's obviously no ice, or very hard to get ice here at any of the races. So I was just kind of dipping it in streams and just staying cool that way. And yeah, I wouldn't say the hot weather kit changes anything about how I'm going to approach the race, but in almost every race I do, there's no such thing as being too cool. And one of my, for example, favorite parts of maybe what we're going to get to in a little bit is like the shoes I'll be wearing, which are much better at draining than kind of previous pairs of Nordas. So yeah, I love dipping in every river and stream I can, even if it's not hot. So
one question we've got coming through on the chat is about sort of mantras during a race. Like, would you have anything like that?
That's for today and tomorrow to figure out. The whole point of my silly little mantras is they're random, they're spontaneous. They're just some things to Adam, who works with Norda and is here staying at the house. Maybe one I'm not going to say on air because it's not quite PG.
We don't have any issues with
Oh, I
you
know.
can say anything.
Oh, I know I can. I just don't want to. I try to stay clean on paper. That's just who I am. But we had a funny little thing that popped up on one of the ambulances last night. It's like that. Even just, it's something random. It's something silly. It has nothing to do with the race.
Yeah, it's almost like a little mental distraction
it's
as
a
well.
distraction.
It doesn't really matter what it is.
Yeah, like I actually listen to a lot of music in training, but I never listen to music during racing. Like I like being involved, but having a silly little mantra. So something will come to me in the next couple of days, and I'll probably write it down on my wrist. I might write down on some paper and give it to Chrissy to literally just have it at the aid station and just say this. Yeah, it's always spur of the moment. So nothing's come to me yet, but
right. You can tell us off air. We'll not repeat
look on Instagram.
Yeah, I've seen the ambulance photo. Yeah.
So moving on to the gear. Which shoe did you wear last year?
I wore, and I did switch shoes.
Yeah.
I wore 2 different pairs of 001s. And yeah, those have kind of been my staple Norda shoe. I'd say in the last year, probably done about 75 to 80% of miles in the 001s. I actually raced canyons in the 002s, which was the first time I'd ever raced in the 2s. But yeah, this year we got a new little secret weapon that I plan to race in. So
the 002 is kind of my favorite because it's more the shoe that you can kind of stick on every day for the runs. So I tend to wear it more. It's also the cinder colorway, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah, it is.
Hey, I make cinder colorway in all 3. Well, all 4 now.
So when did you get the 005?
Yes, it arrived kind of perfectly. It arrived the Monday of my peak week of training for CCC. So I quite literally strapped them on and pretty much did every run that week in them, and they feel fantastic.
So I'm not even going to look at the questions in the chat. Just tell us what your impressions are of that shoe. What do you like about it? What does it feel like?
Yeah, it in the best way possible, just almost doesn't feel like anything. It's I'd say the first, and I love Norda shoes, and I've also had the chance to wear maybe more road super shoes in the past. Like obviously Norda does not make any road running gear, and I have run a lot of road marathons, and traditionally I run in the Nike Alpha Fly or Vaporfly, which are very springy shoes, and I would say the 005s are the closest thing to it. that bounce that I've felt in a trail. And I've worn a few other carbon plated trail shoes from other brands like Hoka or Speedland in the past. And the 005s notably don't have carbon, which I'm a huge fan of. I think for mildly technical trails and up, carbon plate doesn't really add anything and actually might distract from the ground feel. But they feel springy. They honestly, I think they're 250 grams. Like they don't feel like anything. They're so light. And I think the 001s, and the 002s, I think are slightly lighter than the 001s. Those both don't feel heavy to me. They feel pretty light. And these feel noticeably lighter, which I love. They're just, you kind of just forget you're wearing them. They just kind of are on your feet. That being said, I think the highlight is their kind of high density foam is just fantastic. Like if anyone has worn like the Alpha Flies or Vapor Flies, that's the one comparison I think of that like bounce you feel. Like it's the closest thing in a trail shoe I've felt to that. Like it's just that little propulsion with every step.
I'm feeling the 5. It doesn't have that, like with those Nike super shoes, they've got that foam, but they have like an aggressiveness to them as well.
Mm-hmm.
This feels like it's really sort of like a comfortable foam, and it's like
It lets you do the talking
Yeah.
versus the foam directing which way you go.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and it also like just feeling it. It does feel very light, but it's sort of deceiving to the look because the foam looks like it should be a bit heavier, but it's
Yeah.
kind of like no,
Yeah.
it's pretty light.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The last thing I want to ask you about the new shoe is there's a bit of change on the grip, like the outsole, the lug pattern with this new Elite Vibram compound. How does it compare to the other shoes?
Yeah, and I do know that the proto pair that I have don't have the latest and greatest. So I don't quite have the latest. I've seen it and tested it. So I maybe can't speak fully to what that is, but I just know they kind of grip like nothing else I've had in the past. I've definitely, with a little bit of wear, they have started to not necessarily wear down, but maybe I just don't notice the difference now that I've broken them in really well. I know I've had a pair of, I think internally what we're calling the 01Bs, which are either going to be like a newer version of the 01s or maybe like they kind of iterated over time, become that. But they've had very similar grip, that like newer Mega Grip. I admittedly don't know the exact Vibram technology. I think over time I've realized I'm much more of the you give me a nice product and I wear it and I don't worry as much about
I have nice
the
shoes.
it's funny because I am an engineer by trade and I used to think I was a big numbers person. I think over time I've appreciated being more emotive and just kind of going off of feel a lot more. And I think, both the 05 grip and these ones, they feel very grippy, but I'm excited to try the kind of final iteration because I think if I have no issue, I don't notice it. And I've never had an issue with it. So.
Cool.
Will you be wearing the close to production version, or are you going to be wearing the older protos?
I am going to be wearing what's ever available to me, unless there is a magical pair sitting around. Which honestly, with Norda, I never know. In the best way possible. But the shoes that I have broken into, I feel extremely comfortable in. I think one of the other things I'm happy about is that CCC, UTMB, and the races out here, they're technical, but they're not super technical. Like, they are very runnable. So it's less important to me to have like the greatest grip of all time. I think the ones I have are extremely grippy and do just fine.
I think the feeling of that foam on the descent from the Grand Coffret, that would be a big advantage over wearing one of the older shoes. It would make such a difference.
Yeah.
Like there's got to be some sort of saving in the legs there.
Yeah.
Last question. This is your second time CCC. What are you going to consider like a good day for you? Like, what are you looking to what are you looking to take away from this year's race?
Yeah, I think I have come up with plenty of different goals. I think this year I'm trying to be a lot more explicit with like what the main goal is, and there's goals that are higher, there's obviously goals that are lower, and I think very point blank, I want to get top 10. Like I think that is, and there's many lines of what like a very good athlete, but I view myself as one of the best out there, and I won't pretend that like a podium is likely, but I never rule it out. But for me, it's like I want to show I'm in the mix, and I think with any of these really competitive races and kind of the way maybe ultra running is, I think as opposed to like track and field or even road marathon running where it's a lot more time based, I think just right now ultras are about places, especially the elite field at the top end. And I think kind of UTMB top 10 is kind of what we celebrate and really kind of motivating. And I think I'm up there and want to be there. And I think doing a better job this year about like in terms of being explicit with goals, like if I get top 10, that would be a success. And I think if I don't get top 10, I would be disappointed. Like obviously I have, with any race, I step to the line, I expect to finish and I expect to get the best out of myself. And that will always be the case. That never changes. But I think I am ready to like make that next step up in my career. And I think at a certain point, there's obviously reasons races go awry, but it's like, no, like I put this as the goal. And if you don't hit that, I'd be sad and disappointed and would not pretend like, everything went well. And yeah, times, I wouldn't say irrelevant, but I don't really care about the time. It's just, you never know how the race plays out. I think there's lofty goals. Like it is a golden ticket race, which is kind of an afterthought at a race at UTMB, which one of my other goals over the next year is to get a golden ticket and find my way into Western States, which is kind of a dream race of mine to do. But it's not necessarily like in the forefront of my mind right now. Like independent of like not thinking top 3 is like likely as another part of like respect this race. And it's like whatever happens. I don't think like being one of the top, if not the top American, would be like a cherry on top, but we have a lot of extremely talented Americans running it there, and I, would not be shocked if a few of them beat me. But yeah, top 10. That's what it is.
Awesome. Yeah, top 10 is essentially a podium at
Yeah.
UTMB.
Yeah,
and
it is. Effectively.
CCC might be the most stacked race of the week.
It is.
Yeah, especially on the men's side. I'm looking at the names and fear no one, but it's like, yeah, this is a good competition.
The one thing I hate about CCC is fantasy Freetrail picks. It takes so much time.
Yeah. But if they only did top 5, which is the normal race, I just like, I forgot this person.
Yeah, it would be even harder. Like it has to be 10.
To be fair, even top 10 is hard. It's like,
yeah.
Shoot,
I need a 15 for this year.
It's the workload though for 3 races, 10 deep.
Yeah, this is because you take it as like you have to go all in on your fantasy.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, I just got to go by feel on my fantasy because I can't spend 5 hours reading everybody's race results and looking at all of their Stravas. Like, you got to be realistic with it, Aaron.
Yeah. Hold on. Ultra runner personality. You're all in or you're not in at all. So that's just how I do it. You just embrace who you are and do it that way. Look, Matt, thanks for joining us. Good luck for CCC and hope you have a great day.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
That was fun. And now we're going to welcome Arden Young. Welcome to Trail Talk.
Hi. Thanks for having me here today.
Cool. Bring yourself a little bit closer into the mic.
Come back into the.
All right.
That's perfect. Oh, you're
Up close and personal.
Yeah. That'll be a little bit close. We can work with it.
Yeah.
Welcome to Trail Talk. How are you enjoying Chamonix and the valley?
I love Chamonix. That's why I keep coming back. This is my 4th time here during UTMB week, and I didn't think I'd come this year, and here I am.
Why don't you give the viewers a bit of an introduction to you, just like where you're from, some interesting things that we might not even know. So over to you.
Well, my name's Arden, and I'm from Canada. I live in Canmore, Alberta, in the Rockies, where it snowed up high overnight last night. So bit of a different weather pattern right now. I'm 38 years old, so I am one of the elderly ones on the north.
That's the sweet spot for these races.
Yes, I'm in my prime. I am a dentist back home, a general dentist. I work full time, and I've been doing that for the past 14 years. So that's always an interesting perspective, just juggling training to try to be able to compete at this level and then have my professional career back home. And yeah, that's about it.
I mean, there are some other notably very fast, good ultra running dentists as well. So there's a thing there. So yeah, as you said, like this is you've been here multiple times. You're here to race CCC. Just looking at notes here. So you DNF'd in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
16
baby ultra runner back then.
Yeah. I mean, everyone is forgiven whenever they come here for the first time. You're like, whoa, it's steep, it's hard, it's really competitive. In your next time round in 2022, 16th and 1340. Mm-hmm. And then last year, 10th place in 13:11. So like it's a good trend. Like
Yeah.
that rate of improvement would land you with a sweet finish this weekend.
Yeah.
How
I'm
how you what's your like with all of this experience you're taking it into Friday's race? How are you feeling about that? Like what have you learned year on year?
Well, I'm nervous because last year was a really good year for me, and so you kind of go, I had a great trip here. I had a great race day. It was all really positive. So you kind of go into it and thinking, how can you top that? And I actually initially had wanted to race UTMB this year. It didn't pan out just for registration reasons, but it's almost a blessing that I'm back for CCC, just given my time restraints this summer with balancing work and life. I don't know that I would have been able to put the training that I would have wanted to for something like UTMB, that kind of distance and time. So I mean, it's nice to go into CCC. It's good knowing what's ahead. It's also bad knowing what's ahead. I do have, I mean, yeah, I have 4 years or 3 years of experience on this. Ideally, I'd love to stay healthy. The last 2 years, I've either had COVID right before the race or right after the race. So that's goal number one. Stay healthy, have fun. In my perfect day, I'd love to go under 13 hours. I think it's within my wheelhouse, but we'll see. It's also going to be really hot on Friday. And again, just like time constraints, I don't think I've done all of the extra little bits that I could have given with sauna training and such. And it's been quite cool back home. So we'll see. I usually do well in the heat, but you just never know here. I mean, the race goes out fast. You can get uncomfortable earlier than you might usually want to. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. It's just, I can't wait to get a few kilometers off the start line. And that's when I'll start to feel comfortable with the day.
That few kilometers at CCC is about 30. You start to feel comfortable about 30K.
Yeah. I'll take it to Champagne.
Yeah.
Then I'm happy.
So as we've spoke earlier on the show about the hot weather alert for this year, talk a bit about when you come out to the valley and also any strategies that you have or you're thinking about for the hot weather.
So I just got here on Friday. I still feel like I'm getting over jet lag, and yeah, it's quite humid here. I've noticed on the few runs I've done, I'm sweating a lot, which is something that I've heard from multiple people. And so my strategies, I mean, I have done a couple hot races already this year. I raced canyons at the end of April. I did more heat training for that than I've done for this, but hopefully just trying to stay cool, dunk in all the streams and the troughs and everything that I can, dip my hat. I have a really good friend crewing me who was out here last year as well with me. And so he knows to, even if I don't say I'm hot, dump water or ice or whatever he can find on me and just really try to stay wet is always my goal.
Looking at your race history, you've got Bandera, Gorge 50K, Javelina, Desert Rats, Canyons 100K. They're all like kind of what you would call runnable ultras, right? Like they're runnable ultra trails. Where do you place your own sort of strengths and where do you think that'll suit the course?
It's interesting because when I first started trail running and ultra running, I actually preferred more of the mountain running. Like my first bigger race was the 50K. And so it's been an interesting transition just from doing more of that mountain ultra to doing a lot more runnable, because once I got into the sport, I discovered Western States, and then you're like, well, I want to do states, and so you start racing those golden ticket events, and I haven't been able to crack past third place, so I haven't gotten my ticket yet. Haven't stopped trying though. As you can see from this year, I've raced Black Canyons and Canyons, so that's actually what led me into the more runnable stuff. So I've kind of done a transition from more mountainous technical to more runnable. I mean, I now live in Canmore, right in the Rockies in Canada. And so terrain-wise, even though I didn't come out here until a few days ago, we have pretty ideal training for North America, other than it not being hot. But I mean, our terrain is pretty burly. Like you can get a lot of elevation. Earlier in July, I didn't get to race. I was supposed to race a 50K around Fernie in July, and unfortunately the race director, a friend, passed away a few days before that race went, and so some plans got jigged around a little bit. We did a memorial run 50K for her instead, which was pretty special. I did also do the Canmore Quad back at home, where it's the 4 main peaks around Canmore, and so it's 55K with like almost 5,000 meters of really technical vert. So it's probably the best training I can do without racing or without being out here. So yeah, I'm just hoping, like, years of logging time on my legs now and experience, and the terrain back home, even if I'm running at 5 a.m. before work, just gets me all the way back to Chamonix.
So one of the things that I've learned over the just past few months, I met a Canadian guy here in May or June. It was June, I think. Carl, he has the course record on Squamish.
Okay.
So we started following each other on Strava.
Yes.
And the places that he's running in Canada is the only place that I see terrain that's steeper than here. Like he'll go, you look at like the kilometer split and you're like, oh yeah, 250 meters, sweet. Yeah. And he's getting like 300 plus on certain routes. So one of the questions that's come into the chat is like, how do you think like training in the Rockies translates to the Alps?
The one thing we don't have, the length of the climbs here and descents are huge. And that's what I actually noticed the first year I came over when I DNF'd, was your quads take a beating just because it's just like, you're just going up, 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 and then down for so long. And so we don't have, like, ours, I think it's steeper, shorter up and down, but you just don't quite have that same duration of that same pitch or grade of terrain. So we have technical running, we have steep terrain, and a lot of it, the access here is insane. Just like being able to connect valleys and go such crazy distances in one run, versus at home, it takes definitely more planning. It's more remote. Here I don't carry bear spray, which is really cool. Yeah. I don't have to yell for bears every minute. So my nervous system's like way more chill for that. So it's different, but again, like if you have to train somewhere and you can't be out here, it's pretty great.
Yeah, I don't know if I could get my head around the bear thing.
Yeah. Yeah, because even in California, like, we don't carry bear spray. We have bears, we have mountain lions, we have coyotes, but we don't have it at the same level that you do. So we don't, we look for them, we make noise, but we don't have to worry in the same way.
The first time I went to Colorado, I was blown away. I was staying with a friend and I was like, oh, do we have to carry bear spray? And she goes, I don't even own bear spray. And I'm going, what? You're out by yourself for hours, which I can't wrap my head around, because we all know people that have, I've run into bears, people have been charged by bears. A friend of mine was charged by a mama bear back in July, and you just like, it's a real thing. My friend and I, we run at 5 a.m. a lot together. We call ourselves 5 a.m. Club membership is 2 people. And I'm so grateful to have her, because honestly, I think I'd be too nervous to be running trail at that hour in the dark by myself.
Yeah, I don't know. I did a 100K in Romania about 7 years ago, and they didn't say anything about there being a bear problem in Romania. And at race registration, they handed out whistles and said, you need to like be blowing the whistle all race.
Oh my God.
And then I Googled it, before the race, and they had like this, after like they were planning on applying for EU membership. This was back in 2017. And they stopped culling bears because it was like an EU thing that they couldn't do this. So the population exploded, and they helicopter carcasses into remote valleys to lure the bears away from towns. There's so many of them. So yeah, I kind of scarred from that.
Yeah, I would. No, I don't know if I'd do that race again.
No, I haven't actually been back to Romania. So I think we'd like to know about nutrition and some of the strategies there for the race.
Yeah, so this is your 4th attempt. Obviously, you're carrying a lot of training lessons. It sounds like you're carrying a lot of experience where maybe you haven't gotten the ideal training this year. What do you carry nutritionally in terms of lessons learned?
Can I say no more spring energy?
Yes, yes, you can.
Yeah. I mean, I used to fuel quite a bit with spring energy, and I never knew that I could feel better. And then this year, in like I think it was Black Canyon, I started using Science and Sport, and now I progressed to Science and Sport Beta Fuel. So I'm aiming for about 80 grams of carbs an hour, and yeah, man, when you're getting actual carbs, it feels so much better.
Who would have known?
I know, it's shocking, isn't it? When you actually are fueling.
Getting what you're asking for.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So my fueling has definitely changed. And I definitely, if I look back to when I first started running, even last year, I was not taking in enough. So yeah, I often run early in the morning. So I can eat breakfast and run right after I've eaten a meal. I think my stomach's relatively good. In the heat, it's always touchy for everyone, but yeah, so I'm mostly doing Science and Sport Beta Fuel. I still like GOO products a lot, so I use some GOO Roctane liquid nutrition and a couple other treats in there. You know, pain au chocolat always goes down well. You're in Chamonix, might as well. Coke, the staple ultra running fuel.
Absolutely, yeah.
Have definitely transitioned, as so many of us have, to those higher carb gels. It feels pretty good.
You going all gels? You said a little bit of Roctanes, a little bit of liquid carbs.
Yeah.
Do you do any chews?
I don't chew well.
Okay.
Yeah, I find chewing really challenging when I'm working hard. Running, even when I'm training, I primarily use gels, the odd candy or Rice Krispie, but I find, for 13 hours, I'm basically just going to be eating gels.
Yeah. And so if you do real food, it'll be in the aid station when you're stopped, and then you'll just go on a full
otherwise.
stomach.
Yeah. I've used a little bit of the NAC. I mean, NAC's pretty popular being Canadian back home, but I've only really found I'm comfortable with the drink mix. So I can use that if I need it in the aid stations, but I'll probably stick to GOO and Cis for the most part.
Yeah, I was crewing TDS, and I was you know how the drink mix settles, and you're meant to stir it,
and it's better than it used to be.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that I spent a lot of time in aid stations over the past sort of 24 hours, and I didn't see anybody stirring the NAC canisters at all.
So you wonder what they were really getting in there.
Yeah. And only one of the aid stations in TDS had the NAC gels. To lift, so
which I've heard is the same for CCC. I believe Triumph maybe is the only one that has gels.
Okay.
Just kind of overheard that walking through the village today. Otherwise, I don't know if I would have known. But
was that communicated out to people, or was that just
no? I just there was someone talking on the intercom, and I just overheard someone's interview. I think they were interviewing a NAC guy, and that's
the strategy.
Seems like an important thing to share.
It would be. Yeah. There's no purees. There's gels just in Triumph. So. Basically, I mean, CCC, be self-sufficient is sort of the name of the game here.
So additionally, with the heat, you said your stomach's usually pretty good. Are you doing anything electrolyze or hydration wise that you're being more conscious of?
Well, now we have to carry 4 bottles or 2 liters. I was actually planning to probably carry an extra bottle anyhow, not from the start, but probably from first aid station on, or at least maybe at the top of the Grand Col de Fray. And so making sure I'm drinking enough. Again, when it's hot and humid, I do go through a lot of fluid. I'm a pretty heavy sweater. Salt wise, I use a little bit of Noon. So I'll tend to put that in my drinks. And then if I need extra, I have salt pills. But I sweat a lot. I don't actually train taking in a lot of salt. I eat a lot of salt in my regular diet. And if I have strategies if I start cramping or am feeling like I need more, but I won't really be too proactive about it, other than maybe taking some salt tabs in aid stations. The GOO pills, I find they're pretty low salt levels, so I can just pop a couple and it doesn't, if it's too much, it won't be a big deal. It's never really too much. Yeah,
you're not risking much taking an extra one of those pills.
No, and again, it's funny, just being here in the valley, and you hear so much chatter, and there's so much change in the sport right now. It's like high carb fueling, high sodium intake, and it's kind of hard not to second guess yourself, to not want to be like, oh, I need to do something different. You're like, don't change things 2 days before the race.
Yeah.
But it's hard for that buzz to not get in your head.
Yeah.
Well, it's marketing, isn't it? Like it's
Oh God, it works.
it's not doctors that are
Yeah.
telling us this.
Yeah. And it's only not dentists that are saying, yeah, take more sugar.
for sure.
Yeah, well, you have to trust that you've done this enough times and done well last year, that you know what works for your body and you know how to listen to your body as you go.
I think that kind of hits it on the head, is just like, take care of yourself as you go. And if that means, this year, one of my goals is to go through the aid stations faster. I did waste, I think, about 25 minutes in there last year, but if I need to sit in the aid stations for cooling or rehydrating or taking more calories, like, it can pay off in saving your race. So it's just really listening to your body and try to stay cool, try to keep fueled, and keep moving forward.
Obviously, we'd love to hear about shoes. It's our favorite topic.
I thought you were going to say teeth.
Yeah, the effects of gels on your dental health, and how many times you brush your teeth after the race.
Stop it, we're losing the audience. So when did you get your hands on the new 005, and how many kilometers have you put in them?
I actually got a pair right before Canyons, right at the end of April, like a couple days before Canyons, and I did race Canyons in them. I was really happy to have them. For one, I'd raced Black Canyons in my 001s, and I mean, everybody kind of knows the 001s. I love them. They're my staple training shoe. They don't drain well, and so with Black Canyons river crossings, that was a challenge for me with those shoes. And so at Canyons, where it rained the night before and was super wet on course in the morning, to have the 5s and immediately experience how well they drained it like gave me so much comfort. That as I overheard Matt saying, they do have more pop. So anything on that runnable Western States trail, it felt really good. Like, you could feel less leg fatigue. I really enjoyed that. I'm still trying to dial in the fit for myself. So I got the new pair, I think about 2 weeks before I came over here. So I haven't run in them a lot. And the fit has changed. The density of the foam has changed from my original prototypes from back in April. And so I'm finding them like almost a bit of a looser fit. I may have just like a skinnier foot. I don't know. I have a very flat foot. And so I'm finding I have to really crank the laces. So I'm kind of playing with some insoles in them right now, but I still do want to race in them, just because I raced in my 001s last year. I love them. They're comfortable. I'm super confident that my feet stay comfortable. But when you're lining up against this kind of competition, when you want to shave those minutes off your time, it's like, I mean, the super shoes are where this sport is going. And so I'm at least going to start in them. And like I said, I haven't had a lot of time to train in the new edition, but I'll have my 001s as backup with my crew. And if I have to change, I will. But we'll see how they go.
Will you have your older protos, and kind of how many kilometers do those?
Yeah, my older protos probably have about 500 kilometers on them, and they're still great. So I will have those as backups too, and kind of make a game time decision. But I'm going to start in the new ones.
And like, what do you think about the grip levels compared to the 001? Because it's similar pattern but different.
So I still have the old pattern. I still have the old grip and the old pattern. So I haven't seen the new Vibram grip or the change in tread pattern.
Yeah.
Where I'm from, I mean, again, our train's pretty technical, and so I actually really love the 001 grip. And so I'm not sure. I think having the old grip is not a disadvantage on this course, where, yeah, it's not like super technical, but you have descents like the one coming off Bishar after Valencine, where it's rooty, rocky. Having the different Vibram material would be cool, but I don't think it's a huge disadvantage.
Yeah, that rooty section isn't long.
It's short.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We were chatting with Matt about, I think, the big advantage on the new shoe is the Grand Colferay Descent.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be so much different in the 005 compared to the 001.
Well, I think the reduction of fatigue is going to be huge because, like I was saying, like the first year I was here, my legs blew up. So having that cushion, that little extra cushion and energy return will be really nice. I haven't done a lot of steeper terrain in them, so that'll be really interesting. Like I've used them for a lot more runnable terrain. So it's a bit of a risk, but at the same time, the fit is similar enough to the 001 that it's not, I'm not like taking this crazy leap. As well, it's a similar shoe in that it doesn't have a huge rocker. Like the ground feel is similar. It's more just the change in foam, the change in weight of the shoe, and the more breathable, better draining upper.
Yeah, it's exciting that a nice, cool-looking shoe has come to the market in the super, or about to come to the market in the super shoe category. But yeah, you're right. Like, it seems like you have to have some sort of fancy foam now at the front of the race. Even mentally, there might be.
Yeah, because everybody else is
Yeah.
doing it,
Everyone else
and
is
you don't want to
doing
be
it.
out of the race because of that.
Yeah, and I mean, we're talking. These are small advantages, but at the same time, that's where the sport is going. It's the exciting thing about trail running is it's getting so much faster. I mean, in particular, I think in the women's races, the speed is fast, the competition is insane. CCC we're going for 3 golden tickets, so like people are going for it, and any little like advantage, whether it's fueling, cooling, shoes, gear, lightweight stuff, it can make a difference even mentally, where it gives you being like, well, I have this to draw on, or I have this little bit of something special.
Yeah. So closing things out, we've asked the other athletes the same question. What does a good race feel like for you? You know, what are you looking to take away from it? And I don't mean like a time or whatever. You've mentioned sub 13 would be nice, but like, how do you want to feel after you come across that finish line? What would be good for you?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, sub 13 would be nice, but I can't even give a placing because there's 30 women that
who knows?
win this race. So a good day for me would just be like, this isn't as much as I love running with Norda and being at this level. It's like, this isn't my career. I'm a dentist at the end of the day. I need to have fun. I'm here because I love the sport. And so to be out there in the hard moments, be grateful that I get to do this in this beautiful place. I mean, for the 4th time, I am doing a race that is a lot of people's dream race. That used to be my dream race too. Like CCC was the race I wanted to do when I first learned about trail running. So I think just to embrace that and be like, wow, I am getting to do things in trail running that I never dreamed of. Like I never thought I would be at a high level in any sport. And so to look around and just appreciate the journey, what this sport has given to me. And yeah, just like take it in, not take a step for granted. That would be a good day. Lots of smiles.
Yeah. Can't go wrong if that's the attitude.
Yeah.
There's a few things that we've seen, and that is we can almost guarantee that year on year the times get quicker. Like what it takes to be 5th, whatever.
Yeah,
it's just
less attrition.
Quicker. Yeah, and also
Totally.
the best performances are happy runners.
Yeah.
So that's something else that like people are even starting to think like, how do I smile more when I'm racing? Like how do I stay positive?
It's such a mental sport, and part of the reason I feel like I wasn't training well earlier this year was just had some hard things going on in life, and I'm in a better place with that now. So even though I haven't had the ideal training, my mental space is better, where it's like, oh, other things in my life aren't sucking my energy, and so I have the energy and the presence to be out there and be in the moment. And I think like that can be half the battle, to just like not be weighed down by pressure or other stresses, and really just like be grateful that I get to spend a day out there running.
Cool. I think that's a perfect place to end it. So I think we just want to wish you good luck. We hope you have a a positive and happy and great run.
Thank
And
you.
we'll see you on the other side.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to jump into the hot seat and we'll close it out?
Sure.
Well, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody seems to have like a really good energy and perspective this year, which is just so impressive because you can, as Arden was saying, get bogged down by, you know, the quality of the competition and the sponsor pressure. And it sounds like everybody is very appreciative this year.
Yeah, and also everyone has put in significant volume in these shoes. We got a couple of little sneaky bits of ninja info, like that there's an 001B.
Yeah.
Nobody officially would tell us that ever. And some changes from the prototype version. So there's a prototype in May, and it was different. It was the old lug pattern.
Yeah, so it sounds like Arden had the same or similar proto to what Matt got in July, and it's basically it's a different outsole. It's not that Mega Grip light base elite, and it definitely had there's a pattern. I don't remember if they have it on their other shoes, but there's kind of, you know, these instead of that like triangular kind of shape, there's these like little you know, they kind of look like if you were to put you know, like I can't think of the name, but you know, in winter, like if you were to put spikes on your shoes, they're kind of some of those looking things, and those on the old outsoles seem to kind of really wear off because they're just kind of sticking out there, and they just kind of get shaved off by the rocks. So it sounds like from what we've seen with the new outsole, that, you know, that's going to make a big difference in, you know, the longevity of the outsole matching the longevity of the foam.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I can't wait to get a pair myself.
I want to feel
Underfoot.
Yeah.
Because the squish.
Yeah.
We're here for the squish.
We know Aaron is here for the squish in all of its slow-mo glory.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about the squish tomorrow with Jason Schlarb. So for the audience, come back tomorrow. I'll be joined with Jason Schlarb after his top 10 finish at TDS. Co-host will be Ricky Wynn after his 21st place finish at TDS. So it's destined to be a fun one. Chrissy's going to be here. She's going to take the producer role tomorrow, right?
Yeah. I'll be in the chat. So give me some good stuff to yell at the guys.
Yeah. So on that note, we'll close it out and check back tomorrow for the next Trail Talk Live.